Hello team. Nice to meet you all. My name is Abbey and I am a clinical nutritionist. I am the owner of Redefine Nutrition and Movement. So this is an online clinic. I operate via phone call, via Zoom and via FaceTime. So I like to make nutrition very accessible to people. My clients might be in their jammies doing consults with me over Zoom. I don't mind. I feel like nutrition is a bit of a taboo topic. I feel like a lot of people think that they have to have a really significant health concern to be talking about their nutrition. But I think nutrition needs to be an everyday thing, and we need to be more educated on it because it's not something that's talked about enough in schools. I've recently done some jobs going to high schools educating the kids, and it's really surprising what they don't know even at a high school level. So hopefully you can take away a lot from this afternoon. Another little bit about me is that I'm an eating disorder survivor. So I had anorexia in my teenage years, which is why I'm even more passionate about it, because the reason I ended up there is because I was uneducated and I became vulnerable to diet culture, you'd say. There's so much misinformation out there, it's ridiculous. So again, I hope I can shed some light on any lingering questions you may have had and bring up some new ideas that maybe you haven't heard of. I'm also a personal trainer and a Pilates instructor. So I love the movement side of things as well. Big fan of EverStrong. So you'll hear me talk about muscle mass, a little bit about movement at the end as well. And just to clarify, the difference between a clinical nutritionist and a dietitian is that both are a Bachelor of Health Science, but my extra learnings were in private practice versus a hospital setting. So I'm not qualified to work in a hospital, but I'm qualified to work in private practice, and I love that because I get to do more preventative medicine rather than end care. So my presentation will be all about inflammageing. So what is it and how can food help our bodies age healthily? So inflammageing, the word is a combination of inflammation and aging. So essentially, as we age, we have this level of chronic, so long-term but low-grade inflammation that happens in our bodies. It's just part of aging, right? Over time, though, if we don't do things, particularly with food, to help reduce that inflammation, it can cause damage to our cells, which you'll see here. And those cells could be your brain cells, they could be your muscle cells, they could be within your digestive tract, and that damage increases our risk of chronic disease. So say like Alzheimer's or dementia, or inflammatory bowel disease, or muscle breakdown, or osteoporosis. A way that I like to frame it is that it's like a fire that doesn't really go out. So you can see on the diagram that the red line is the chronic inflammation known as inflammageing. So it will go up, but then it doesn't come back down. It kind of lingers and it goes up and down with different aspects of life, but it never fully goes out, right? Whereas the green line is what we call acute inflammation. That means short term. So that would be like if you rolled your ankle or you fell over and there was a little bit of an injury, it would get swollen, it would get red, it would get inflamed. That helps your body heal, but it goes away. The problem is when it doesn't go away, it becomes chronic. And again, if that fire doesn't go out, it can increase our risk of chronic disease. So most, if not all, of age-related diseases share an inflammatory origin. So some examples up there: cardiovascular disease, osteoporosis, dementia, Alzheimer's, diabetes, cancer. Most of those involve cell breakdown or cell damage in some way. And the science these days, which obviously I'm very passionate about, is inflammation is an underpinning way of cell damage. But it's not all doom and gloom, right? There's stuff we can do about it. So you have control of the levels of inflammation in your body. And there are simple, proven nutrition strategies that I'm going to share with you guys to help combat some of the parts of the inflammatory process. Something I do want to shine light on is that I'm talking very much about the end stage of chronic inflammation, right? The diseases. But there are warning signs that this could be happening. So that would be joint pain that's lingering, but maybe you don't have osteoporosis or you don't have rheumatoid arthritis that's ongoing joint pain, or brain fog that doesn't go away, or hair is thinning or falling out. Oh God. Look, there's some points where we can't reverse it, but we can prevent it from keeping on going and keeping that fire from burning further. We want to mellow it down. All right. So in my clinic, I'm trained to identify those warning signs and dive in, give people proven evidence-based strategies to help regulate that, to make you feel better. So these are the two parts of inflammaging that I'm going to be focusing on today. It might look like a bit of mumble jumble, but one is pro-inflammatory cytokines and number two is something called oxidative stress. Don't have to worry about this slide too much. So your cytokines, they are cells that are released by your immune system and they act as messengers to other cells. An example is like growth factor. So if your immune system releases growth factor, it will tell other cells to grow and multiply. Now we have two different types of cytokines that are released by our immune system. Number one is pro-inflammatory, so that feeds the fire. But remember, in short term, that can be good. It can help. Long term, not so good. Yeah. Anti-inflammatory are the opposite. They can dampen the fire. And lots of studies show that those who live longer and healthier lives have higher amounts of anti-inflammatory cytokines circling in their bodies. How do we do that though? So nutrition steps in. Something called omega-3s, which you might have heard of before. They increase your anti-inflammatory cytokines in your system. So omega-3s are part of our fats, our dietary fats. You may have heard like unsaturated fats and then saturated fats. Yeah. Omega-3s sit under the unsaturated fats category. So you've got omega-3s and you've got omega-6s. It's kind of like a pyramid. Now your omega-3s, another way to term it, which you might have heard, is EPA and DHA. They are names of particular omega-3s. You might see that in fish oil supplements. Has anyone read like omega-3, EPA, DHA? Some nods? Yeah. So that's just types of omega-3 fatty acids. Now they are anti-inflammatory because they help increase the anti-inflammatory cytokines, and they're neuroprotective. So they help protect the brain from damage. Now, the minimum amount to get in our diet is 0.25 to 5 grams per day. My next slide tells you food examples, don't worry. But the optimal amount is 2 to 3. So how I work is with optimal ranges. It's clinical. So we go in there and we give you dosages through food and through supplements which actually have clinical scientific effects. You know, 1 tin of tuna isn't enough. It'll help a little bit, but we work with optimal ranges. So here are some examples of common foods with high omega-3s and how much exactly is in them. So you got salmon. 95 grams is like a small fillet of salmon. That has 1.83, so that's close to your 2. Salmon in a can is less. Obviously the processing and the storing will reduce those active omega-3s. Herring has close to 2. Trout close to 1, and a tin of tuna has 0.2. So tin of tuna hits your minimal amount, but it doesn't hit your optimal amount. You have to have a lot of it. So with my clients, I like to work achievably as well. I'm not going to tell you to eat 10 tins of tuna, but I'll do maximum dietary intervention that's reasonable and achievable, but clinical supplementation can be the way to go. Yeah. So I'll go back to this slide. A common question that I get is, I don't like oily fish. I've heard that chia seeds and walnuts are high in omega-3s. They don't have EPA and DHA, which is the neuroprotective one and the anti-inflammatory one. They have something called ALA. That's converted to EPA and DHA, but less than 1%. So again, you have to have even more. Not saying that you shouldn't be doing this at all. I don't want that to come across, but you have to really think about it. You have to really prioritize it to have that anti-inflammaging effect. So yeah, clinical supplementation is your key to optimal. So on the screen, I know it's quite small. This is an example of a supplement that I will prescribe. It's called Clinical Lipids 2-in-1. It's by a brand called Orthoplex, which you may have heard of. It's in more of the clinical supplement range. You won't find it in pharmacies or Priceline and stuff. It's practitioner only. So these are the things that I will order in for my clients specifically based on your concerns. So through one capsule, it contains 1.3 milligrams of your omega-3s. So if you have 2 a day, you're getting that optimal level. It's good stuff. This is a comparison with Blackmores. So Blackmores has 50% less EPA and DHA. But it doesn't mean you just take more to get the right amount, because it has more like mercury, cadmium, and lead, which is your heavy metals that you really don't want to be over-consuming. Something in the health world that you may have heard of is like, oh, tuna has too much mercury in it, so I shouldn't eat it. But you can absolutely eat 1 tin, that's fine. But if you are looking into supplementation, you need to get good quality supplementation, because you need to weigh up how much you're getting with how many heavy metals you're getting. So this one here, you can see that the clinical lipids that I will prescribe, very, very marginal mercury, cadmium, and lead, where Blackmores, there's not really any regulations around it. How come? Because they work with different parameters. So Blackmores, it's a particular name. I think it's on there. Yeah, so there's Australian guidelines, general Australian guidelines for heavy metal amounts in supplements. They abide by that. But then there's more of the higher quality clinical supplementation that they have their own set of guidelines. So the ones that I prescribe adhere by that. Yeah.
And what you have is so good. Why isn't it available in pharmacies?
Good question. The reason why these things aren't available in pharmacies is because they are high dose. They need to be prescribed by someone who knows what they're doing. So this one would be safe, but as a general rule, we can't be putting all clinical dose supplements in a pharmacy, because people may be overdoing their nutrients. Like for example, at the moment, B6 is one that's flagged because that can cause nerve damage if you overdo it. So you can't just be popping high dose pills. It still has to be moderated. Too much fish oil can actually thin your blood. So I wouldn't want to be putting people on too much. Yeah? Does that answer the question?
I think so. Yeah. What do you think about sardines?
Sardines are also in the oily fish high omega-3 category, so they are great. I don't have exact stats on how many, but you could Google omega-3s and sardines and it will let you know, but they are good to be having for sure. Something else I want to bring up on this category is omega-6s. So our omega-3s, which we've just learned about, are anti-inflammatory. Omega-6s can be pro-inflammatory, especially if they're over-consumed. So omega-6s are quite high in red meat. So you'll see on this chart how many omega-6s they have versus omega-3s. So we need to be careful that we don't overconsume red meat. And I find in our Western society that's something that happens quite a lot. It's cheaper, it's more accessible. So people might be having red meat 4 times a week and having oily fish maybe once a fortnight, maybe once a month. So as a tangible change to be taking away, let's up our oily fish and let's think about reducing our red meat consumption, because there's lots of studies that show in Western diets, such as like typical Australian diets, we have an omega-6 to 3 ratio of 10 parts omega-6 to 1 part omega-3. Should be 2 to 1. So there's a lot of room to move. The next topic is antioxidants. So moving on from omega-3s to antioxidants. Now you can see on the little seesaw, inflammation processes, oxidative stress, they tip you into that inflammaging, increase your risk of chronic disease. Whereas antioxidants, they come in and they help reduce cell damage and help reduce all of the proteins that can cause cell damage, and they can balance our scales a little bit more. Right? So antioxidants are in all your different color foods, fruits and veggies mainly. So the more color you have in your diet, I would say 3 to 5 colors a day, the more antioxidants you are getting to help reduce those proteins that can damage our cells and cause or exacerbate inflammaging. So examples, you've got your oranges, which is carotenoids. So carrots, tomatoes, sweet potato. I said skin on because that's where a lot of the fiber is. As long as you scrub it, don't eat all the dirt, you'll be fine. Anthocyanins, they are in your blues and your reds. So a lot of people know blueberries are high in antioxidants. I feel like that's quite well known. But then there's red cabbage, there's purple sweet potato. This isn't an exhaustive list, but it's just some primary examples of where to get those colours from. Flavonols, it's quite a broad category. Apples, berries, kales, onions, and then hesperidin, which is in citrus fruits like lemons and limes. So my advice, oranges, they're not as high in your antioxidants. They're more like vitamins and minerals like vitamin C. Doesn't mean they don't have any, but these would be my go-tos if you want bang for your buck. Yeah. So we need to eat more colors and we need to eat more fruits and veggies, for sure. So this is an example, classic example of a healthy plate. Half of your plate should be non-starchy vegetables of different colors. Can I do a little quiz? Can you put your hand up if you think that's you? Hey, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Good. Nice guy. So we have things to work on. This is kind of an easy adjustment that you can make to your meals, like frozen veggies. Add in some frozen broccoli to a meal that you wouldn't have before. Dump in a handful of spinach. Grab some kale slaw from the shops. Don't put in the dressing and put that into your salad. Bulk it up, add colour. There's lots that we can do. And what it means by non-starchy veggies is anything but potato, sweet potato and corn. They fit into your carbohydrate category. And if we have half our plate of potatoes, yum, it's probably, that would be quite an unbalanced plate. So we need to think about that being in the quarter, because that's starchy, it's carbohydrates. So yes, increase colour, increase amount. I would say to be having 4 to 5 cups of veggies a day. So cups, like metric cups. So maybe 2 with lunch, 2 with dinner. That's 4. That's pretty good. Be happy with that.
What about soup? If you make your veggies into soup, is that still got the same nutrients in it? Or yeah.
So if you're cooking veggies and you're not overcooking them, they still retain a lot of the nutrients. So you don't need to worry about that, but you just need to think about volume. So if you put 5 cups of veggies in your soup and you're having a fifth of it, it's only 1 cup. So we've got to think, how can we bulk it up to get enough of the good stuff? So the last thing that I want to talk about is a healthy body composition. So going back to the half a plate of potatoes, if we have more carbohydrates than we use, because carbs give us energy and we burn that energy off, but if there's excess, it will lead to adipose tissue, so fat gain, because that's how our body stores excess carbohydrates, right? And higher levels of fat mass, they increase your pro-inflammatory cytokines. Whereas high levels of muscle mass, they reduce your levels of pro-inflammatory cytokines and they increase your levels of anti-inflammatory cytokines by something called myokines. So we all go to class, obviously, which is amazing. Going to class and exercising and lifting weights, that creates tears in your muscle fibers. And then if you have the right nutrition, protein, that will go in and repair those tears in your muscle tissue and cause muscle growth. So I love exercise, all for it, but your nutrition needs to match in order to get the results that you want and to help with inflammation. So eating enough protein does require effort. The ideal amount of protein that I want you guys to maybe make a mental note of is 1.2 grams of protein per kilogram of your body weight. So if you weighed 80 kilos, then it would be 96 grams of protein per day. That doesn't mean 96 grams of chicken. Yeah? 100 grams of chicken has about 20 grams of protein. Does that make sense? Yeah. So it's just a way to flip the brain. It doesn't mean you only need to have 95 grams of chicken. You'd need to be having 500 grams of chicken. There would be a variety though, but just for an example. So these are examples of 20 grams of protein. Again, this is not the only food you can get protein from. There is a lot more, but these are common and they provide more protein per weight of the food. Yeah, so chicken, fish, or beef. A palm-sized serve gives you 20 grams of protein. Legumes like chickpeas or kidney beans, about a cup, probably a little bit more. Eggs, 2 to 3 eggs. Tuna or salmon, talked about that a lot today. A fillet or a tin. High protein yogurt, YoPro, Chobani Fit, they're my favorite brands. 1 cup. Protein powder, certainly not against it. 30 grams of that can be a really convenient way to get in 20 grams of protein. Cottage cheese, and then also tofu. Alright, so those are easy things to take home with you to think, could I somehow get in 4 of those in a day? So that is where I come in. Because you can have all the knowledge in the world, but my job is to simplify it and make it achievable for you. To give you small changes to your nutrition that have a big impact that help you hit your direct goal. It might be inflammageing. It could be inflammatory bowel disease. It could be diabetes. It could be just because you're tired and you want me to help you boost your nutrition. There's a lot that I can do to help you. So yeah, my goal is to make nutrition easy for you. I will always prescribe the right supplements that give you enough of what you need that don't waste your time or money. I can also look at blood work, so I'm trained to look at your blood tests in an optimal range rather than doctors' broader general ranges. So for example, doctors may say your B12 is fine. I will look at it and go, you're feeling fatigued, you're getting these symptoms, it needs to be higher. And then I put the right things in place to help you achieve that. I love to help you build a routine that makes you hit your nutrition targets effortlessly. I'm not someone that will give you unachievable goals. I want you to feel empowered by the changes you're making, otherwise you're not going to do them. And yeah, I love to make small tweaks that make a big impact. So there'll be little flyers around the room, a bit more about me. If you want to come and chat to me afterwards, you're more than welcome. But yeah, I really hope that you enjoyed the information. Got some stuff to take away with you. And are there any final questions? Cool. Thanks, guys. Great to be here.